couple weeks ago I put out a video highlighting one player that every team in the Eastern Conference should target in a trade. Now this video will be doing the same but for the Western Conference. Keep in mind these trades are supposed to be realistic, so don't be mad if I don't have your favorite team trading for Giannis. For the Golden State Warriors, I have Michael Porter Jr. as their trade target. After Jimmy Butler's injury this week, this has become a bit of a lost season for the Warriors, but they can still get some good out of it by trading for Michael Porter Jr. MPJ would be perfect for the Warriors as they're in desperate need of size and a third option for when Butler returns next year. I'm sure Steve Kerr is salivating at the opportunity to add a 6'10 movement shooter to his offense that won't shy away from any moment, and will help to keep the Warriors' offense rolling when Steph is on the bench. It was reported last week that the Warriors haven't seriously looked at MPJ as a trade target, which makes no sense because they should be jumping all over this opportunity to add a perfect piece for their offense that wouldn't cost a ton to acquire. For the Los Angeles Lakers, I have Keon Ellis as their trade target. The Lakers badly need more perimeter defense since their three best players are mid to very bad defenders, and Marcus Smart can only do so much himself. Adding Ellis would certainly help to remedy the Lakers' 23rd ranked defense in points per possession, and he'd be playable in a playoff series since he's not a massive negative on the offense like Jared Vanderbilt. Ellis is having a slightly down shooting year this season as he's currently sitting at 36% from 3, but I think a lot of that is due to Doug Christie messing with his minutes all season since he's a career 42% shooter. This would be a home run trade for the Lakers since it would fill a dire need while costing relatively little. For the Sacramento Kings, I have Ochai Agbaji. Ochai hasn't gotten as much run in the Raptors' rotation this year due to Brandon Ingram being healthy, so it seems as though he's definitely available for trade, and I think that the Kings should take a hard look at getting him. Ochai is a good defender who can play either shooting guard or small forward, and he would certainly help to better Sacramento defense that is bottom 5 in points per game. On the offensive end, Agbaji has shown that he can be a good off-ball player, as he's shown that he can be a good spacer, averaging 40% from deep last year. He's also shown that he has good feel for making cuts as well. Agbaji looked like a quality role player last year, but has been quite rough this year after getting many of his minutes taken away. And I think the Kings would be smart to buy low on him and add him as a young piece for both the present and future. For the Phoenix Suns, I have Marcus Sasser. With the Pistons improving mightily over the past 2 years, Sasser has seen his minutes cut in half over the last 2 seasons and is now barely a part of the rotation. Meanwhile, the Suns have had very little point guard depth and have relied on guys who really don't have much of a future in the league to give them minutes. Sasser is someone who's shown that he can give quality minutes when given an opportunity, both shooting well and playing good defense. Sasser's been a really good defender in his career and is averaging a blistering 45% from 3 this year, albeit in limited minutes. And while he may not rack up assists off the bench, he's certainly capable of setting up his teammates with his speed driving into the paint. He fits Phoenix well on the defensive end too, as he has a high steal and deflection rate over the past couple years. The Suns would be smart to contact Detroit and try to nab him and improve their bench for the foreseeable future. For the Dallas Mavericks, I have Ben Sheppard. Right now the Mavericks have a need for an off guard off of the bench, and Ben Sheppard could be a good option for Dallas. Sheppard can give the Mavs some value by being a 3-and-D player who has already played in huge games due to being a part of the rotation for Indiana during their deep playoff runs over the past 2 seasons. I think he'd be a good complement to Max Christie at the shooting guard position and would help the Mavericks to make a push for the playoffs this year and could grow with other young players like Cooper Flagg and Derek Lively. For the Los Angeles Clippers, I have Malik Monk as their trade target. The Clippers have been the hottest team in the NBA for the past month, but they still have one very glaring hole on their team. The Clippers traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic last year to give them a spark plug guard off the bench, but he's been a huge disappointment for the Clips. Malik Monk is a proven top-tier 6-man in the league, though, and is capable of taking care of ball handling when either Harden or Kawhi are on the bench, as he's capable of scoring in bunches, as well as making plays for his teammates. And while it might not be great for extended periods of time, he can play alongside them since he's been a great catch-and-shoot guy in the second half of his career. I don't think this move would make the Clippers contenders for the West, but I do think it would solidify them as a playoff team. For the Denver Nuggets, I have Russell Westbrook. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that the Nuggets didn't bring back Russ after a pretty successful year with them last season. I guess his rough series against the Thunder left a sour taste in their mouths, but he can still provide value for teams with his ability to come off the bench and attack the rim and set up his teammates. I could see why people would be skeptical of spacing concerns due to Westbrook's shooting in the past, but he's improved as a catch-and-shoot guy this year, now shooting league average from 3 on over 4 catch-and-shoot attempts per game. He's also familiar with the system and teammates since he was there last year, which would help the transition from Sacramento, and it would probably be a good boost for the team's chemistry as well, since almost all of Russ's teammates have seemed to love him. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, I have Dennis Schroder. The Timberwolves are a really good team that for the third straight year have a chance to win the Western Conference. However, they have a huge point guard problem, as Mike Conley has aged out of being an impactful player, and Rob Dillingham and Bones Highland just don't bring enough positive value to the table for a team that has such high aspirations. Schroder would give the Wolves a point guard who could help direct the offense and relieve some of the responsibility that Anthony Edwards has on his shoulders. A team this good can't go into the loaded Western Conference with this caliber of point guard play, and adding Dennis Schroder to the fold would help to solidify the position for Minnesota, while costing much less to acquire than some of the other rumored point guard options via trade like Ja Morant. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, I have Trey Murphy. It seems as though the Pelicans would like to keep Trey around in New Orleans, but everyone has a price. With the amount of draft capital that the Thunder have over the next half-decade, the reigning champs are more than capable of ponying up enough assets to get themselves a stud and still have a healthy amount of picks in the future. Adding a movement shooter who can also put the ball on the floor and not only finish at the rim, but finish at the rim at a very high clip, would add a whole new dimension to OKC's offense and take the Thunder offense from top 5 to perhaps the best in the league. While he's certainly not an all-defense level guy like much of the OKC lineup, he's not helpless on that end either, and inserting him into the lineup most likely wouldn't affect the overall defense much, but it would take the offense to the next level. For the Portland Trail Blazers, I have Simone Fontecchio. The Blazers have really started to round into form lately, but they really need some shooting help. The Blazers are 6th in the league in three-point frequency, but they have the worst shooting percentage of any team in the entire NBA. Adding a quality floor spacer like Fontecchio would help to alleviate those shooting problems, and would add depth for a team that's had to give heavy minutes to two-way players this year. Fontecchio also wouldn't cost much to go out and get from the Heat as well since he's on an expiring deal. For the Utah Jazz, I have Tristan Vukcevic. With Walker Kessler out for the season and Jusuf Nurkic on the last year of his contract, the Jazz have a need for a backup center for both this season and beyond, and swinging for a guy like Vukcevic could be beneficial for the Jazz. With Vukcevic stuck behind 2 other good young centers on the Wizards, the Jazz could go out and get him for a small price, and give the third-year Serbian a better chance to grow as a player on a young team with a need at his position. Vukcevic has shown that he's capable of stretching the floor, as he shot 37% from deep on 3 attempts per game last season. And on the defensive end, he's a good rim protector who's been in the 92nd and 94th percentile in block rate the last 2 years. This could be a good low-risk, high-reward move for Utah at a position that they could really use some help with. For the Houston Rockets, I have Gary Trent Jr. After a scorching hot start to the season, the Rockets' three-point shooting has fallen back down to earth. In the month of January, the Rockets have been the worst three-point shooting team in the league at just 29%. Gary Trent Jr. is having a down year so far from 3, but he has a history of great shooting in both the regular season and the playoffs, including shooting a bonkers 50% on about 9 three-point attempts per game during last year's playoffs. Adding a proven playoff shooter who's just about to enter his prime years seems like a good bet for Houston, especially since he's on a cheap contract and probably wouldn't cost much to acquire from the Bucks. For the Memphis Grizzlies, I have Day'Ron Sharpe. Zach Edey is a tremendous starting big man for the Grizz, but he does seem to be quite injury-prone due to his unique size and stature. Because of this, I think the Grizzlies should look for a center who can be a quality backup for him, as well as have room to grow into a good starter if he does continue to rack up injuries in his career. And that's where Day'Ron Sharpe comes in. Sharpe is a really good defensive center who's very mobile and very comfortable defending outside of the paint. He's currently at least in the 90th percentile in steal, stop, and deflection rate among centers. This would help Memphis to become more versatile and would really be helpful for matching up in different series and future playoff runs. Sharpe is also a quality offensive center as well. He's improved his finishing this season and now shoots well above average at the hoop, but his passing is even more valuable. He can make passes that other centers either can't or won't make, and is really good at passing out of the short roll, which helps to get open looks for shooters. I think a trade for Sharpe would be a home run for the Grizzlies, and they have more than enough draft capital to make it happen. For the New Orleans Pelicans, I have Josh Minott. The Pelicans currently have a bottom 3 defense in the league and have a need for another wing or forward. Enter Josh Minott. Minott has unfortunately had to sit behind established players on contending teams so far in his career, and I think that the Pelicans should make that a thing of the past. Minott has shown that he can be a great defender in his limited run over the first few years of his career, constantly putting up great steal, stop, block, and deflection rates over his 4-year career. He's not a liability on the offensive end either, as he's nearly put up 50-40-90 splits over his career. And he's been both a good spacer and rim finisher this year, as he shot 44% from deep and is making 75% of his shots at the rim. And lastly, he's shown to be a great rebounder as a forward, averaging nearly 9 rebounds per 75 possessions. I think Minott would be a great fit in New Orleans, and he would help to build a defensive culture that is currently non-existent. And lastly, for the San Antonio Spurs, I have Haywood Highsmith as their trade target. The two biggest weaknesses of the Spurs might be their inexperience and lack of shooting, and Haywood Highsmith would help to fill both of those holes. His 3-and-D skill set would fit well with the Spurs, who have great slashing guards who can feed him open looks. Highsmith has shot 38% from deep in the regular season since his return to the NBA from Europe, and he shot an impressive 40% from beyond the arc in his time in the playoffs with the Heat over the last 4 years. He's also a really good defender as well, and is used to being the guy tasked with guarding the opponent's star player. While Highsmith is currently recovering from meniscus surgery, he should be back well before the playoffs. Trading for Highsmith feels like it would be a good low-risk, high-reward move for the Spurs, since Highsmith is a playoff-experienced 3-and-D guy who would cost little to obtain.